Good morning, guys. Welcome to this GymHippie seminar on sustainable fat loss. My name is Luke. You may have seen me around, you may not have done. Thank you for giving up your Sunday afternoons to come and speak to me. Today is about two things. Number one is to make sure that you are on the right path with your own fat loss journey. And number two is to make sure that I can give you something tangible to take away that you can implement immediately into your own individual strategies. To begin, I just want to talk about the problems that so many people are facing. There are 5 of them. And to go through them one at a time, number one is that people want to change. You know, we want to be happier. We don't want barriers around our appearance. You know, we don't want to feel out of shape. We don't want to feel overweight. We don't want to feel insecure about certain body parts, like our bingo wings, our love handles, or whatever. Nor do we want barriers around our mental health. You know, we don't want low confidence. We don't want low self-esteem. We don't want to feel low in mood. Nor do we want barriers around our physical health. We don't want to feel weak. We don't want to feel run down. And the reason why we don't want these barriers is because ultimately they prevent us from being the people that we want to be and living the lives that we want to live. I'm a father. I have 2 sons. You know, I want the strength and I want the energy to keep up with them when they're playing in the park. I want to be a good role model. I want to feel like I'm inspiring them and setting them up for a healthy future. I'm also a partner, I'm in a relationship, and I want the confidence to wear the clothes that I want to wear and go out on a date night and not feel insecure and up in my own head about how uncomfortable I feel. And maybe I want to have a photo taken and I don't want to have an anxiety attack when the camera comes out. And obviously I have a career. This is me, this is my career, and I need the confidence and the self-belief to stand up in front of you and talk about this. I'm also a friend, and I am fed up. Certainly old me is fed up of saying no to invitations, social invitations, especially ones that require me to put on something nice and get outside my comfort zone. I'm sure you can relate in your own way, but the headline is that we want to be happier and we want to change, which leads me to point number 2, to confusion. We don't know how. There are so many voices out there saying different things. We are lost, we are directionless. Who do we listen to and who do we not listen to? Now, invariably, if you are like most people, you will end up, certainly initially, opting for a quick fix. Now, what do I mean when I say quick fix? Well, I'm talking about fad diets, celebrity-endorsed gimmicks, gadgets, fat-burning supplements, detox diets, anything that promises you rapid results. We all fall for these at the start. I mean, I remember going into Boots probably 15 years ago and spending 30 quid on a supplement called Instant Abs. It was a lotion that you rub on your tummy and instant abs are meant to be the result. Did it work? Did it? Bollocks. But I've been there. And I have a theory about quick fixes. I have a theory about why we all fall for these, and it's 2-pronged. Number one is they're very attractive. You know, who doesn't want a quick solution to the pain that they are experiencing? And the second reason why I think we fall for quick fixes is that they are everywhere. They are all that we see. Because if you consider the alternative, which is slow and steady progress, well, that's not sexy. That's not going to sell. And if it's not going to sell, then we're not going to hear about it. And if we can't hear about it, then we can't even choose it. So you end up with a situation where the only thing on the table is a quick fix, and actually it sounds pretty damn good. So of course we go for quick fixes initially. Which leads to problem number 4, frustration. Because inevitably The quick fix doesn't work, at least not long term. The frustration with quick fixes is huge. It's frustrating when you're doing the quick fix because they're often miserable. They're often extreme. You know, it's not fun to be eating nothing but food out blue packets on the Cambridge diet. It's not fun to be getting all of your calories from juice. It's not fun to eliminate carbs. So often it's really frustrating when you're doing the quick fix, but then it's really frustrating when you're not doing the quick fix because you feel like you're doing nothing towards the person that you want to be. So you end up with this huge circle of frustration, on it, off it, on it, off it. I like to compare it to a merry-go-round, which goes round and round and round, frustrated when I'm doing the quick fix because it's not really working and my quality of life is miserable, and frustrating when I'm not doing the quick fix because I'm doing nothing towards the person I want to be. It's totally understandable why people give up. Because after a few turns on that merry-go-round, it's not good for your well-being, you're not getting the results you want. A lot of people just go, sod this, you know, I'm getting off this merry-go-round, it's rubbish. And I totally understand why. But it doesn't need to be this way. There is a solution to this, and that's what I want to share with you today. So how do I avoid falling into quick fixes with my clients? Well, the first thing, what we need to do is recognize that there are no quick fixes for fat loss. You cannot cut corners with this. There are no shortcuts. You may be familiar with the story of the tortoise and the hare, where there's a race and the hare sets off really, really quickly, sees rapid results, but ultimately never finishes the race, where the tortoise, on the other hand, starts off slow and steady. But he lasts the distance. Yes, his pace of change is slower, but he lasts the distance. And this is an apt analogy for fat loss, because fat loss is a journey. And actually, what I do is I create an achievable plan for that journey. And guys, that journey is really just made up of a series of baby steps. Baby steps maybe like a tortoise might take, but the crucial thing is being able to consistently take those baby steps regardless of what life is throwing at you, because you're all busy. You've all got careers, friendships, maybe some of you in relationships, maybe some of you have families. So your challenge is going to be consistently taking those baby steps regardless of what life throws at you. Now those baby steps, they consist of behaviors around these key fat loss pillars: calorie deficit, protein, strength training and cardio, sleep and stress. And I really want to hammer this point home. There's nothing sexy about any of it. There's nothing aggressive or extreme about any of it. Everything that we do with our clients is based on moderation and based on balance. And that's not just because we're nice guys, which obviously we are. It's fundamental that we do that if the strategy is to be successful. And here's why. Because the secret to fat loss success is consistency. And if your strategy is aggressive, if it is extreme, then you will not be able to be consistent when life throws you curveballs. It has to be moderate. It has to be manageable, because only then will you be successful on your journey and able to take those baby steps week after week, month after month, year after year. So ultimately, what we're looking at here, guys, is lifestyle change. It needs to be part of who you are and how you live your day-to-day life, and not just something you did for a while, for a couple of months, a flash in the pan, a short-term solution. It has to become part of who you are. Any questions on that? Cool. Yes, young lad at the front.
Is it possible to do a quick fix type solution and then maintain your progress afterwards?
That's a fantastic question. Yes, but the key is ensuring that actually you develop the skills and the knowledge, the thing to fall back on. So a lot of people go all, and they put their foot down and they do something quite extreme and aggressive. Cool, you'll see rapid results. And I totally get it. Like, yeah, you want to see results now, right? You want to see results yesterday. Totally get it. And that's sound, but where most people go wrong is when that strategy stops for whatever reason, there's nothing to fall back on. So they just revert back to their behaviors that they had before the quick fix. So absolutely we can, but we need to make sure we do two things at the same time. Set you up for long-term success whilst we pursue that short-term goal. Now, before we go any further, I want to dispel a myth. Crucially, I want to make it clear that fat loss and weight loss are not the same thing. And in my mind, this is one of the biggest areas of confusion within the fat loss industry. Let me explain. Weight loss. Weight loss is about reducing the number that we see on the bathroom scales. Weight loss does not care how that number goes down. Weight loss doesn't care whether we're losing muscle, whether we're losing fat, whether we're losing bone, whether we're losing brain, whether we're losing limbs. Fat loss doesn't care. Weight loss doesn't care. As long as that number is going down, wicked. We are losing weight. We are successful on our weight loss strategy. Doesn't care about fat versus muscle. Fat loss, on the other hand, or to give it its geeky name, body recomposition, it does care. It does care what we're losing. Specifically, with a fat loss strategy, we want to burn the fat, but preserve or maybe even build the muscle. And you might say to me, well, Luke, why do I care about preserving or building muscle? And I would say that's a fantastic question. Let me give you 4 reasons. Reason number 1, strength. If you want to be strong, if you want to be physically capable as you go through life, you need muscle for that. Number 2, empowerment. It's empowering to be strong. It's also empowering to acquire the skills that you need to be strong. Strength training is very empowering. And I often observe with my clients, particularly those that wrestle with challenges around self-belief or confidence, that the confidence they acquire in the gym around getting stronger, around learning to strength train, can spread far and wide into other areas of their life, both professionally and personally. The ripple effects, if you like, from gains made in the gym truly do spread into other areas of life. Number 3, shape. If you want to be shapely, if you want to have tone, then you need muscle for that. And finally, body fat control. Now, this one is often overlooked, but muscle is a calorie guzzler. It's highly metabolically active. So just by existing, the more muscle you have, the more calories you'll burn, which ultimately means the more food you can eat without gaining body fat, the less likely you are to enter into a calorie surplus, i.e. consume more calories than your body requires and gain unwanted body fat, which I think you'll all agree is pretty cool. Now, in terms of the strategy, in terms of what it looks like method-wise, here we go. This is weight loss versus fat loss. Across the top here, we have weight loss. Across the bottom here, we have fat loss. So confusingly, both strategies begin with a calorie deficit. And for anyone that doesn't know what a calorie deficit is, this is where we consume fewer calories from our food and drink, fewer calories than our body requires for activity, and thus we force it to seek calories internally, usually from body fat or muscle, in order to make up that deficit that we're not getting from our food. Both strategies start with a calorie deficit, essentially eating less. But that's where the similarities stop. You see, weight loss might involve cardio. You know, this classic move more, eat less strategy that we are all told. This is a classic weight loss strategy. But not all weight loss strategies involve cardio. We know, my mum is one, of people who have just pursued a diet, i.e. reducing their calories, for a whole lifetime without doing any cardio. So it's not essential. Fat loss, on the other hand, requires us to consume more protein and to strength train. This is not a nice to have, this is fundamental for this strategy. Now in terms of the outcome, down the end there, now just to be clear, I'm not saying slimming down is bad at all, far from it. What I'm saying is you can have all the benefits of this and way much more when you pursue fat loss. So fat loss, it's more about how you look, perhaps with your clothes off. In addition to how you look in your clothes, it's more about how your body performs. It's more about how you feel. It's less just obsessed with the scales. It's much more holistic, is a nice word I like to use. And actually, talking about holistic, when it comes to mindset, the difference is huge. Typically, weight loss approaches tend to be quick fixy. People who want to lose weight, they wanted to lose weight yesterday. They want it now. They are in a rush, and they tend to be the hare on that hare versus tortoise story I mentioned on the last slide. Whereas fat loss tends to promote more long-term thinking, more lifestyle change-based thinking, which, as we saw a moment ago, is what we need for long-term success. Now, to hammer home the difference between these two strategies, I want to tell you a story. A story about a lady called Emma. Now, Emma, this is not Emma, this is off Canva, but Emma is a real person, and her story is a real story. Emma is a working mum, she has 2 kids, she cares about her health and fitness, but she struggles to prioritize it. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that. Goals-wise, she wants to lose a bit of weight around her tummy, she wants more confidence, she wants to feel better in her clothes, and she wants more energy with the kids. Now, I'm going to tell you 2 quick stories. The first one is Emma's weight loss story before she reached out to GymHippie. And the second story is her fat loss story, which happened after she reached out to GymHippie. So, to begin, Emma's weight loss story. This starts with an upcoming holiday. Let's say she's going to Greece in a few months, 3 months to be precise. In 3 months' time, she's going to be on a lovely beach in Greece in her bikini. And she's thinking, I want to look and feel my best for this. 3 months, she thinks, this is the perfect time frame for me to achieve my goals. So she does a bit of Googling and she ends up on some wanky website that tells her, hey, Emma, the more you cut your calories, the faster your results. And Emma's thinking, oh, I'm all in here. I'm all in. I'm going to do this properly. I'm committed. Let's do it. Let's pull the trigger on this aggressive strategy. So she aggressively cuts her calories. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, down to 1,000 calories a day, which is about 50% of the recommended daily intake for an average female. So quite aggressive. Training-wise, let's say she joins a gym. She joins Buzz Gym and she commits to going 7 days a week. She knows that's a lot, but again, she's thinking, I'm all in here. I'm going to do this properly. There is no strength training because Emma's been told by her colleague at work, let's call her Claire, lovely Claire, who is into her health and fitness, so Claire knows what she's talking about. Claire tells Emma that you will look like a man if you strength train. You will look bulky. So Emma goes, no strength training for me, thank you. Cardio only, cross trainer, 7 days a week. Nutrition-wise, lovely Claire tells her carbs are the enemy, carbs are going to make you fat, junk food is the enemy, junk food is going to make you fat. So Emma gets rid of them. No more pasta, bread, rice, all food that she enjoys. No more pizza nights with her partner, no more ice cream for the kids. It's all gone. We're doing this properly, remember? Needless to say, as the weeks roll on, Emma gets increasingly hungry, tired, and miserable. As you might expect, her strategy is incredibly restrictive and aggressive. She's not much fun to be around. Everyone at home is treading on eggshells. You know, what's wrong with mum? Keep your distance from mum, guys. She's on a diet. Over a month, she loses 5 kilos, which she's happy about. She wanted to lose weight. That's why she's doing this. But when she looks in the mirror, she's not seeing the shape that she wanted. There's no sign of tone, and she's worrying about losing her bum and her boobs. A little bit dissatisfied with what's going on, starting to wonder whether her strategy is effective, and she's certainly beginning to wonder whether it's sustainable or not, because everything she's doing is extreme and she's fairly miserable. Her quality of life is fairly low at this point. Anyway, the wheels fall off the wagon. It all explodes. Emma has a stressful week at work, a week from hell. Deadlines, arguments, overtime, you name it, it all happens at once in the same week. Doesn't make it to the gym at all. And when it comes to her nutrition, she ends up ordering from Deliveroo 4 nights on the trot. Pizza, whatever, just I need convenience, I've got no time. And because she's stressed as well, a little bit of emotional eating creeps in. Ice cream, sides, wedges, thank you very much. Needless to say, Emma is utterly mortified. She thinks she's completely ruined it. Sod it, she thinks to herself, I can't do anything right. Pulls the plug on the whole thing, falls off the bandwagon. She returns to her old behaviors, the same behaviors that caused her to gain weight in the first place. 2 months later, she goes on holiday, but she's regained most of the weight she's lost. She sat on the beach, not feeling great in her bikini, all up in her head, negative chitter-chatter, feeling a bit insecure, doesn't have the experience that she wanted, doesn't make the memories she wanted, comes home and is like, I need to do something about this. And she looks for another quick fix. Or, as I said earlier, the merry-go-round takes another turn. Now guys, I'm sure on some level we can all relate to this. I've been there, and this is a really common story. It's actually well documented. There's a name for it, it's so common. It's called the dieting cycle, where essentially we start a diet, we do something aggressive and restrictive, we deprive ourselves so our quality of life takes a hit, and then life throws a curveball, we hit an obstacle, and because our strategy is not sustainable, we fall off the bandwagon. And then we feel shite about it. And then we do the same thing again. And it goes round and around. Some people spend a lifetime stuck on this. If there's one thing to take away from today, it's that we do not want you stuck on here, because it is a miserable place to be. Can anyone relate to this? You, me too. I've been here. On to the next slide. A happier story. This is Emma's fat loss strategy. So this time, Emma hasn't got a deadline to her dreams. She's looking at the big picture. She wants long-term results. She wants lifestyle change. She just wants to change how she lives her normal day-to-day life. This time she engages with a more reliable source of information, GymHippie. And we tell her, Emma, yes, you need a calorie deficit, but the headline now is moderation. And there are 2 reasons why. Firstly, you're going to enjoy it more. Your quality of life is going to be higher. And if you're going to enjoy it more, then there's way more likelihood that you'll stick to it long term. It's way more likely that you'll be consistent. And we know consistency, as I said earlier, is the secret to success. But there is a second reason why moderation is so important when it comes to that calorie deficit, why moderation is doing it properly. If you go aggressive with your calories, It doesn't matter how much strength training you're doing. It doesn't matter how much protein you are taking in. You are going to experience unwanted muscle loss. And as we've already seen, we do not want this. So moderation is doing it properly. This time, Emma prioritizes protein because she understands that protein will help her burn fat and get her the physique that she wants, the appearance that she wants. With regards to her nutrition, this time it's built on flexibility and moderation. She doesn't impose these rigid restrictions. She doesn't eliminate her favorite foods. Again, for sustainability. Does she prioritize healthy foods? Yes, she does, because she cares about her health and she wants to look and feel healthy. But does she eliminate junk food? No, because she doesn't need to, and she knows she doesn't. She simply needs to account for the calories. This time, she starts strength training for all the reasons that we've just said, and she starts going twice a week to the gym. Twice a week, which is completely achievable around her work, around her family commitments, even during her most challenging weeks. So week after week, she's strength training. Over a month, she loses 3 kilos, which, if you remember, is less than before. But crucially, this time, when she looks in the mirror, she can see her body changing. She can see the shape, she can see the tone. And something magic starts to happen here, guys. Because her body is changing way more than the scales are, her relationship with the scales starts to change. She no longer sees the scales as the sole marker for her progress, and she starts to gauge her success in other areas, how she's performing in the gym, how her body is looking, how her clothes are fitting, how she's feeling. Her relationship with health and fitness is changing. And underpinning it all, because everything she's doing is sustainable, because she's enjoying it, she's able to stay consistent long term. It's becoming a lifestyle to her. It's just becoming part of who she is. Now, needless to say, we at GymHippie are all about fat loss, not weight loss, and we think that you are too. Because let me tell you this, I have never met anyone who's initially come to me and said, Luke, I want to lose weight. And then I've explained the difference between weight loss and fat loss. I've never known anyone who, after all of that, has actually turned around and gone, no, I still want weight loss. In my mind, everyone wants fat loss, but we just simply do not historically understand the difference between the two. And in my mind, this is one of the biggest areas of confusion in the industry, and I feel like if more people knew the difference between weight loss and fat loss, then so many more people would feel more in control, more empowered, and calmer when it comes to their health and fitness. And if I was to be a little bit of a conspirator, I would suggest that there are certain voices, powerful voices out there, that don't want you to find this information out. Because if you knew this information, the diet industry would collapse. And there's lots of people that don't want that to happen. Just to recap, this is how fat loss works in a nutshell. We consume fewer calories through our nutrition. Again, moderation is key. We create that calorie deficit, and then because we are strength training and because we are eating lots of protein, we are forcing the body to burn fat and keep muscle. This is fat loss in a nutshell. So just to recap again, the key behaviors in order to ensure this happens: moderate calorie deficit, prioritizing healthy foods, which we'll talk about in a moment, strength training, a high protein diet, sleep and stress management, and maybe a little bit of cardio. Goal number 1, key fat loss behaviors, calorie deficit. So the first thing to say is a calorie deficit is king. A calorie deficit is the only way to burn body fat. Without a calorie deficit, we will not burn body fat. You have my permission to slap in the face anybody that tells you differently. In terms of creating that calorie deficit, We have two levers. We have two tools at our disposal. We have exercise and we have nutrition. Exercise obviously burns calories towards our deficit, and nutrition, or specifically reducing our calorie intake, will create our calorie deficit by reducing calories in. Now, this is a really important point. Nutrition is our priority. It is much easier to not eat calories than it is to burn calories off. I'm assuming here, I'm not talking about emotional eating, we'll talk about that another time. I just mean for a normal human behaving logically, it is much easier to not consume calories than trying to burn it off. So to demonstrate this, I always like this classic example. Let's take a small glass of red wine. It's about 200 calories. How long does it take to drink, I should say, a small glass of red wine? For me, about 5 seconds, a few minutes maybe. To burn those calories off, you would need 20 minutes, maybe even longer on a cross trainer. Now, although theoretically it's possible, in real life, in practical terms, I've never met anyone with the time and the desire to burn off those excess calories on a daily basis. In my mind, it's utterly incompatible with real life. So nutrition is our most powerful weapon when it comes to creating that calorie deficit. As we've discussed, moderation is essential for quality of life and consistency, but also to ensure that we do not lose unnecessary muscle in our calorie deficit. MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal is an app that does a number of cool things. Firstly, it will calculate your calorie requirements. So you asked me about calories a moment ago and how many calories do I need? MyFitnessPal will tell you. What it does essentially is give you what I call a calorie budget, which works exactly the same way as a financial one. If you are managing a financial budget, your goal would be not to overspend and arguably not to underspend too much either. It works exactly the same way. So it's really cool and empowering to have the knowledge and the perspective on that to feel in control of your calorie intake for the day. So not only will it give you your budget, it will allow you to track your calorie intake. You can scan barcodes, you can search the database, but essentially you have the tools to manage your calorie budget on a daily basis. So it really puts you in the driving seat. Calorie quality. So we've talked about calorie budget. And you might say to me, okay, fine, Luke, okay, I hear you. You're going to give me a calorie budget while I'm going to spend it all on chocolate. And I would say, fine, you could do that. You could do that. A calorie costs a calorie, regardless of where it comes from. But there are a number of reasons why you might not choose to do that. The first one is health, obviously. Healthier foods come with more health benefits. If you care about your health, it makes total sense to prioritize healthy foods. The other reason is the cost. You see, junk foods, your chocolates, your crisps, your high-fat foods, your highly processed foods often come with a higher price tag in calories. So you'll be able to afford way less food for your money, for your calories. And if you spank all your budget on chocolate, then you're going to go hungry. You're not going to be full for the rest of the day. So strategically, if you want to effectively manage your calorie budget, it makes total sense to pick healthier foods, perhaps ones that contain more fiber or more protein, that are going to make sure that you do not go hungry from day to day. Because remember, we need a high quality of life here, guys. If you go hungry and you're hungry on a day-to-day basis, that's fairly miserable. Now, 80-20. I'm not saying eliminate junk food, because for a lot of people, having a high quality of life does mean the occasional indulgence. The 80-20 rule is a GymHippie framework where we strive to get 80% of our calories from healthy food and 20% of our calories from junk food. So you get all the benefits of a diet rich in high quality food, but you've got that 20% there to indulge if you choose to. You don't have to, but it's there if you choose to. And what this does is it eliminates guilt from eating junk food. I know so many people, when they eat junk food, they feel like they've messed up. They feel like they've done something wrong. They feel guilty. They feel ashamed. When you have it as part of the plan to accommodate those indulgences, you can enjoy junk food. I don't like the phrase, but I'm going to use it, guilt-free. So this is what that looks like, guys, the 80-20 rule. Protein. Before we get to protein, actually, let's talk about macros. So you have your budget. Now, what you can spend your budget on is called macronutrients. For sale, you have 3 macronutrients, as far as we're concerned: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. They all come with a different price tag, fats obviously being more expensive. All foods contain all 3 macronutrients, but certain foods are better sources of certain macronutrients over others. So let's take chicken, for example. Yes, it will contain some carbs and some fats, but primarily chicken is a source of protein. So if a calorie deficit is king, then protein is queen, for 4 reasons. Number 1, as we've seen, it preserves muscle in a calorie deficit. Number 2, which we've not seen, is protein, or specifically the digestion of protein, burns more calories. If you were to eat 100 calories of protein, you would burn 20 calories just digesting it, which in my mind is a pretty good return. You might consider it like cashback, where you get to enjoy eating the 100 calories, but you don't absorb 100 calories, you only absorb 80. So you can see, in terms of a tool that might be useful in terms of achieving that calorie deficit, protein is up there. Also, protein is highly satiating. It keeps us fuller for longer. And as we've said, we're in a calorie deficit, so we're not giving our body all the calories it would like. So any tool that's going to help us keep hunger at bay is useful. And obviously, we're going to be strength training, protein, the building blocks of muscle, important if we are training. Needless to say, protein is the most important macro for fat loss. But so many people, from my experience, underestimate, or a word like that, under something, they get it wrong is what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is they consume too little protein. We would recommend about 20 to 30% of your budget on protein. And if you're wondering, well, what the hell does that look like? MyFitnessPal will sort that out for you. It's not an exact science. You don't need to be meticulous about this to the gram, but general ballpark figures, this will start you off in the right place. A nice easy way to get started is just to start asking yourself, where's the protein? Every time you eat something, where is the protein? Start building your meals around protein. A lean protein is a protein where pretty much all the calories from that food source are from protein. Almost nothing from carbs, almost nothing from fats. It's almost all protein. And if you remember, our goal here is to try and hit a calorie budget whilst hitting quite a high protein target. So these foods might be considered a little bit more fat loss friendly for that reason. But just to make absolutely clear, fatty proteins or carby proteins, there's nothing wrong with them. They are still an absolutely decent source of protein. They simply come with more calories, in this case from the dietary fat, or in the carby protein case from carbohydrates. And that just needs to be factored into our budget. So do not be scared of these foods. Just note that they come with more calories for the same amount of protein. Moving on. Number 3, training. So we've seen already that training is fundamental for fat loss because of its role in preserving muscle in a calorie deficit. We've seen how it reshapes the body. We've seen how muscle burns calories. We've seen how the benefits of strength training go way beyond just what you look like. We've talked about empowerment. We've talked about strength. Mental health we haven't talked about. So you're all humans. apart from maybe you. Not sure about you. And as humans, you're going to experience negative emotions. In modern life, maybe you might experience them quite a lot, especially if you're a more sensitive personality type like me. With these negative emotions, they have to go somewhere. You have to do something with them. Some people emotionally smoke, eat, do cocaine, talk to their friends, go for a walk. Like whatever you need to do, you have to do something. For me, strength training, that is how I soothe my negative emotions. It really works for me. And what I love about it is it comes with all these benefits as well that contribute to my well-being. But in terms of my day-to-day mental health, strength training is just a cornerstone. Again, as I've said, consistency is key. And what I would recommend is basing your workouts around these core categories when it comes to strength training. The buzz classes, they're all based around these pretty much. Certainly all of my sessions with my clients, my programming is all built around these categories. Essentially, they just give you more bang for your buck in terms of muscle recruitment, targeting all the major muscles of the body. Now, I've said this before, but I want to hammer this home because this is so important. Nutrition is the driver of the fat loss car. Training is the passenger. And what I mean by that, guys, is in order to create that calorie deficit, as I said earlier, nutrition is our most powerful weapon. We cannot out-train a bad diet. Even though on paper, as I said, we can, in reality, it's not going to happen. It's not compatible with day-to-day life. What I like to say to my clients is, when we are in the gym and we are training, we are preserving muscle. That is what we do in the gym. That is our training. The calorie deficit, the fat loss, that occurs at home. You hear this cliche all the time. Fat loss occurs at home. Actually, the cliche is abs are made in the kitchen. But I'm going to twist that slightly to say that fat loss occurs in the kitchen, muscles occur in the gym. We do not come to the gym to burn fat. Nutrition is by far our most powerful tool. We create that calorie deficit by taking control of our nutrition, which takes place outside of the gym. Sleep. So you might not think that sleep is a really obvious thing to consider on a fat loss journey. And it is true, like being sleep deprived isn't going to directly cause you to gain body fat, or it's not going to directly hamper your ability to lose body fat. But there's a lovely quote here, which is, trying to burn fat whilst neglecting sleep is like trying to juggle whilst riding a bicycle. It's like, yes, you might succeed, but it's really unlikely. And here's why. It's because it impacts our decision making. If you're anything like me, when you're sleep deprived, you get hungry. And you don't get hungry for vegetables and healthy foods. You're hungry for sugar because your body wants quick access to energy. And that's what sugar provides. And there's nothing wrong with sugar in and of itself. It comes with a price tag, like any other food. But the issue with sugar is it doesn't fill you up. And then you want more because you're hungry. And actually probably because it's lit up your reward centers and your brain is saying more, 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 more. So you eat more sugar and more sugar and more sugar. And very quickly you can see that you will likely go over your calorie budget for the day. So the first issue, eating junk food from tiredness for energy. Exercise. Obviously, if you're really tired, you're less likely to want to train. I don't have to unpack that one. Emotions. If you're anything like me, when you're tired, you're fairly emotional. And I don't mean the good ones. I'm talking about stress, anger, in my case, anxiety, maybe. And if you have a predisposition to emotional eating, you can see how this is not useful for our calorie budget. You know, if you're eating to soothe negative emotions because you are tired, that can absolutely get in the way of being consistent with your calorie deficit. There are people I coach as well who have a lot of anxiety around coming to the gym. So if they're feeling anxious because they haven't slept, you can totally see how that might be a barrier to getting their asses down the gym and actually training. The final one, caffeine. So we know that a lot of people rely on caffeine to get through the day, and it's not a problem in and of itself when it comes to fat loss, but it just might perpetuate this sleep deprivation cycle, which is threatening for our budget for all the reasons I just said. So if you can, if you're able to, if you're not a new parent like me, I strongly suggest that you take steps to protect your sleep. Here are a few suggestions on how to do that. I won't read them out. You can have a look at the slides when I send them to you. But for me and from my clients, a staple of good quality sleep is having a solid bedtime routine. Stress. So sleep and stress, I'm going to clump them together here, guys. And I'm going to say these are like the cornerstones of your strategy. Or if you like, if anyone's ever played Jenga, these are those bricks at the bottom, whereas if you pull them out, everything else above it just collapses. Stress is much the same as sleep, in as much as when we are stressed, it impacts our decision making. I mean, this is chronic stress, which you can totally see. Like if you're predisposed to emotional eating, and that's something you do when you're stressed. If you are chronically stressed and you are emotional eating on a daily basis, that can be a massive barrier to maintaining consistency with your calorie deficit. But I'm sure you'd agree, just all of these things, they are not going to get you in the right headspace where you can make informed, rational decisions in line with your goals on a daily basis. So stress management is a real foundation in my mind when it comes to consistently making goal-supportive decisions on a fat loss journey. Here are some suggestions on how you might manage negative emotions when they flare. Again, I won't read them out. And finally, guys, just to finish, let's talk about cardio. Now, I have a bee in my bonnet when it comes to cardio, and it's this. For way too long, cardio has been marketed as and spoken about as the primary weapon for burning fat. And this is bollocks. It might be optimal for fat loss, as I'll explain in a moment, but it's not fundamental for fat loss. You see, as we've already seen, we can achieve the required calorie deficit through nutrition alone. We don't need to burn extra calories through cardio. We might choose to because yes, of course, the extra calories are useful. And yes, of course, there are many benefits to cardio. Heart health, cardiovascular fitness, mental health. And for those reasons, I would always advise having some cardio within the plan. But crucially, when it comes to fat loss, when it comes to creating that calorie deficit, it's not essential. The key is to find something you enjoy. And if you don't enjoy anything, then don't do it. And obviously, as I'm saying that, I need to be careful because yes, it is useful and I would recommend it. But to be clear, you don't need it as part of your fat loss strategy. The amount of people I see doing classes of HIIT or on the treadmill for hours and they look utterly miserable. And I'm not going to go and ask them because it'd be a weird thing to do, but I'm fairly sure if I was to go and speak to them and say, excuse me, why are you doing this? They would say, because I believe it's what I need to do in order to burn fat. And guys, if this is you, then I hope I've just released you from that limiting belief. And I just want to demonstrate how this works. So you've got two scenarios here, scenario 1, scenario 2. In scenario 1, this person consumes 2,000 calories from their food and drink. They do no cardio, but their net intake is 2,000 calories. Scenario 2, a person consumes 2,500 calories from their food. They burn 500 from cardio, but their net intake is still 2,000 calories. This person is doing cardio, this person is not, but their net intake is exactly the same. So what I'm saying to you guys is choose who you want to be. Which one are you going to enjoy? Which one is going to be sustainable for you? And pick it. And that's me, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll take some questions.
Do you believe that there's any level of sacrifice in like even a sustainable fat loss journey?
In terms of like quality of life, will it? Is it inevitably going to take some hit, your quality of life? That's a very good question. It depends. Depends on your preferences. Depends on what foods you like to eat. It's a very good question. I'd like to think that what we do is make it as comfortable as possible. I would argue that for a lot of people we coach, or I coach, no. I believe they can have it all, a really high quality of life, doing all the things they want to do, just making more mindful choices, living life to the absolute full with no sacrifice, and absolutely at the same time achieve their goals. But yes, there are some people who maybe, if it's ingrained in their soul that I'm a clubber and I want to go out and eat junk food all day, every day, then yes, that person might find it a little bit more challenging. But what I would say almost without exception is people realize it's much easier than they thought it was, because they come from a place of restriction and misery with these quick fix approaches. So when you pursue something more sustainable, they're almost always surprised at how easy it feels in comparison.